talking to a man now with a career spanning over 40 years plus. Don't I know?
He's wincing.
This is John Hurd, of course, and you've been called a legend once or twice, haven't you, John?
Well, yes, somewhat mistakenly, I think. Yes.
Some of the most iconic roles in film history, though. That I mean, you'd probably say, knowing you as we do a little bit, you'd probably be quite modest about it. But some of the roles have been phenomenal, looking back, haven't they?
Well, it's always very difficult to talk about oneself in those terms. You know, it's. I hate to be falsely modest, you know. Obviously, they've caused some sort of an impact, otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here. But I find it still quite uncomfortable to talk about.
What have you enjoyed? What has been the most frightening thing, going on stage or being a film star, for a start?
Well, I never really had to worry about being a film star, I don't think.
Although you were a star and you appear in films.
I work in films, yes, but I wouldn't say that I was a film star.
No?
No, I think a film star, quite a difficult thing to be, and particularly out of this country. Mm. You know, somebody like Sean Connery, of course, was a film star. Mike Caine was a film star. He was determined that he should be, and it's a very different sort of area. And he groomed himself, in a sense.
Go about to clubs and have women on your arm. Is that how you see a film star? What do you...
Well, on the contrary, no. I think that's not the best. It's quite controlled. Quite controlled. Certainly in Hollywood, if they're grooming a film star, particularly nowadays, because my friend Shia LaBeouf is being kind of groomed to be a film star, and it's sometimes against the grain of what he would like to do.
Yes,
yeah.
And it's all about choice then, I suppose, and what that person wants to do and if they're willing to pay that price.
So you got up to all sorts of things then, and we didn't know about it. Is that what you're saying?
Unfortunately, with me, you did know about it.
Right, okay.
You play Arthur Selden in the Oxford Murders. That's, I suppose, what we're here to talk about, although it's tempting to talk about the entire film history, really. But tell us about that.
Particularly as this is a difficult one to talk about, because it's a thriller.
Yes.
And therefore, I don't want to say too much, because you give a thriller away, there isn't much of a thrill left.
What does Arthur Selden do for a living?
He's a professor. He's a professor of logic. Oxford University.
Yes.
Arrogant.
Yes.
And,
cynical?
Cynical, yes, definitely. He's pessimistic, whereas the student, which is played by Elijah, is optimistic, young.
Annoying.
And frightfully annoying, yeah. Certainly very annoying to the professor, until he finds out that within the circumstances of the film, he can be useful to him.
I think we have a clip of you lecturing, telling us all the way it is. I don't know if it's natural or not, but here's the clip. Aha. Now, does mathematics and logic, I was reading, there is a place for that in your life. I mean, there has been a place in the past, hasn't there?
Mathematics and logic?
Yes.
Family-wise.
Familial, yes.
Yes, absolutely. My father was, he was a mathematician. He was a mathematician and engineer before he became a clergyman. Well, actually, he didn't give up being a mathematician when he became a clergyman, necessarily, but professionally. And my uncle was what was called a Cambridge Wrangler, which is a term which has long since deceased.
What's a Cambridge Wrangler?
Cambridge Wrangler is basically a double first in mathematics at Cambridge.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Interesting, your dad went from being a maths or suitable logic to being a clergyman, which you think is belief and spirituality. They seem to oppose, really, don't they?
You'd think that it would be. You'd think that it would be. It's music and mathematics often go together. You certainly would have thought that mathematics and, or at least that sort of logic, and religion would not go together.
And on the spectrum of one to the other, if it's linear, where are you on the spectrum, personally, in your beliefs?
What beliefs are we talking about here?
God on the one hand, science, mathematics on the other.
Well, I'm not a believer in a personal God.
Right.
Mathematics, I was hopeless at school. I completely skipped a generation. But I've become kind of more interested. I became rather interested because I met a wonderful man called Washek in North California who was a mathematician and had been published. And his book was so extraordinary to look at that there's nothing that I could recognize, not even in terms of mathematics. And I said to him, how many people understand this? It seems to me to be extraordinary. And he said, oh, a lot of people would understand this, at least 200.
Really?
So I thought this was a somewhat esoteric book.
Yeah.
And then he produced another book later, and I saw 2
man.
years later, and he said, I said, this must be more commercial. He said, no, this is a very difficult book, only 10 people understand. So,
including him, hopefully. But John, it's lovely to talk to you. As usual with these things, we don't have enough time.
No, we never do.
We never do.
No.
But the Oxford Murders sounds intriguing.
It is
I
fun.
hope it's a success,
Yeah.
like so many of your other projects have been. Thanks ever so much for coming in.
OK, thank you very much.